Welcome to this special bonus episode of the Passive House Podcast. I'm Zach Semke, Director of Passive House Accelerator, and we're happy to be sharing a series of bonus episodes recorded in Hamilton, Ontario at the Passive House Canada Conference 2023. These interviews were conducted by Mary James, our Director of Publications, and Michael Ingui, our founder. A big thank you to Euroline Windows for underwriting this special series. Please enjoy.
Well, thanks for having me, and great to meet in person. My name's Sean Botham, Manager of Development at CityHousing. We're a municipally owned corporation for public benefit. We have 13,000 residents call our buildings home. We're actively developing and revitalizing and renewing our portfolio, and part of that means we're constructing new buildings, which are all to Passive House. We also have neighborhood revitalizations, which are community reimaginations that see partnership with private sector and nonprofits to redevelop a whole community. So we've got a couple of those underway too. We're trying to accomplish so many social benefits with our projects. It's not just about financial sustainability, but it's all, the environmental sustainability and then the impacts on our residents and quality of housing. So I know one of the things you mentioned was, on the these ancillary benefits, non-financial benefits, and from what we understand out there in the research around buildings and people and well-being, is that there's a real correlation between indoor air quality or air quality wherever you are and cognitive performance. So that's one of the things we've seen, and in no way are we trying to measure and monitor those things, but do we want to provide the best environment for folks so that they can thrive? Yeah, for sure we do. So part of having these buildings so airtight and sealed allows us to do mechanical ventilation to provide great quality air that's filtered, and we're hopeful that has a positive impact on folks' health. You can always think of the opposite, folks who might live in a basement that's not well conditioned and has air and maybe water infiltration and all the health hazards that are conveyed through that scenario. So we're doing the exact opposite, right? Pumping in great quality air and doing it at scale for so many folks. So that's definitely one of our pieces on the wellness side. The other is really around building resiliency in terms of the structure and extreme weather events. So, if our buildings are to go offline, there's thermal comfort that gets maintained, even if, the temperature plummets outside and for whatever reason there's no electricity or power otherwise to a building or heat or cooling. Our buildings really can maintain temperature in those extreme events. And actually during commissioning of our Ken Sobel Tower, we actually had a few days where we were out and you could see very minor drop over cold days in the building. So it played out, not that we wanted to test it, but it played out true. So those are a couple of things. And then we've partnered with U of T and CMHC to do this.
U of T being
University of Toronto. Yeah. Great team at U of T who are studying both occupant well-being, but also monitoring other performance and measuring all sorts of pieces of our building to try and determine what are the wellness outcomes, what are the social benefits, and how does that relate to energy and sustainability. So it's this comprehensive study. I'm really hopeful that there's some learnings and that we can continue that study until there's enough data to make a great publication internationally. So yeah, that's U of T's work, and we're just happy that they're working with us on that project.
CityHousing Hamilton is so out in front of most city social housing organizations. How is it that, for instance, the Ken Sobel Tower, how was the decision made to aim for EnerPHit standard for that? And how is it, you mentioned that for your new buildings, you're aiming for a Passive House standard. How was it that your organization took this kind of stance and decisions?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I mean, essentially by 2016, we were out of the development game, but our board wanted to restart that in earnest with 2 large-scale projects as well as a number of new builds. So they commissioned us to acquire sites and to build out and revitalize. And one of the first things we had to do is figure out, well, how do we approach it in terms of building form and design and how do we prioritize even sequencing? And we happen to have one of these West Harbor properties, a high-rise that is the oldest one in our portfolio. It was sort of the canary in the coal mine for accumulated deferred maintenance and disrepair. And if you look at photos from the time, it was not a great quality, great condition inside. So when we looked to figure out funding for the capital repair, which is the main repair, we thought, well, what are the other things that we could layer in if we're doing it all at once? Normally we knock off a few projects a year in terms of capital repair, but if we were going to accelerate and do them all at once, maybe it could pair with some other pieces. And we knew about Passive House, and I had actually been certified early on. And so we looked for a team that was capable in tower renewal, and then we looked to funders and pitch them on the idea that, well, what if we layer in energy, accessibility, and sustainability all on top of our capital repair, and could we make it feasible? So luckily at the time we had a new CEO who was from the healthcare sector and really understood health and wellness and saw the benefit too in terms of sustainability. And so he was a champion of this project and took that great big idea and allowed us to run with it. So, and our board bought into the idea of high quality housing, and that they were supportive all along the way. And that plays into this whole new build approach where we're building high quality housing. It just happens to be affordable. That's how we're thinking of it. So, yeah, I don't know.
And how many towers, the Ken Sowell Tower, that you did the Enerfit revitalization on, how many towers does CityHousing Hamilton own in their portfolio?
Yeah, we've got something like 34 mid and high-rise buildings. Ken Sowell was the oldest and in greatest need. But, I mean, if there was funding available, there's no shortage. I think across Canada, there's something like 2,000 post-war apartment towers, right? There's a huge number. So we happen to have a collection because that's when a lot of social housing was built out post-war, and that was the form factor that they built. So it really is coming due for repairs, and there is a great opportunity to pair the energy side with capital repairs that need to be done anyways. So, yeah.
How are you branching out from that to approach your other mid and high-rise properties?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're carefully navigating what to do with our other towers. I mean, there's a imperative to maintain every affordable unit and not let it go to private sector or otherwise go up in rent. So we definitely want to find a way to make them financially viable, and I'm sure that there will be pathways to improve energy performance. It really requires deep pockets. So as federal or maybe even provincial programs become available to enable those, we'll see more of these projects. It's a hard case to make as a one-off investment, but we're in the perfect storm where we have to make incredible capital investments already. So it is a great opportunity to do it. On the new build side, so much easier to just say, this is the line in the sand, we'll build a high quality, high performance. And it's not necessarily correlated with an increase in price to do the high performance on a new build. So that makes it an easier go. And
how many units are you looking at in your new build portfolio, roughly?
Roughly, yeah. So right now, they're all mid-rise, so smaller form factor for the most part. We've got only 100 unit building just built out, but in total, it's something like 500 units right now. We are in a envisioning phase for a development strategy that would see many more new buildings built out in our second phase. So first phase is 9 buildings, second phase is yet to be determined, but we want to ambitiously provide affordable housing, not just maintain it, but add to the stock. We believe our board wants to take us in that direction. So we're hopeful for our ability to build out many more.
And how do you see prefabrication playing into this new construction?
Yeah, prefab is, so we're already, we're subtly seeing it in terms of panelized solutions, right? So wall sections that are sandwiched together, multiple components. It could be a finish layer right to exterior, weather resistant side. So the whole package craned in. So we're seeing that already, and then now volumetric. It's a further innovation in the sense of packaging the whole thing up in the factory and shipping out multiple units at a time. So I feel like both of those are in parallel, going to continue to go. Somehow there will be greater efficiencies with modular. It just has to happen. And as we see factories develop more automated processes so that it's not just built in factory, but it's built through automation in factory, that's where we're going to see, that's where my guess is where we're going to see significant cost savings. So
have you built using modules?
Yeah, we're on our third project. So right now, this week we have one being craned in. It will happen over a few days, 24 unit building. We also completed construction in December, precast concrete panelized system building, 10 stories. That was very novel in terms of it going to passive house. Although the techniques have been around, just going high performance is new. And we've just commissioned a third building that is actually mass timber, and it's panelized systems, so modular in the sense of panelized. And we're seeing incredible benefits in terms of schedule and cost for that particular system. So every project there keeps on being innovations, and I think that's due to a sector ramping up innovation and quality of delivery. So we're benefiting from that, and I hope that continues for sure.
And in terms of stimulating the market for these kinds of construction approaches, have you seen an effect of that with your work? I mean, have you seen it? It must be a boon to the companies that you're working with to get these kinds of contracts, and then hopefully maybe the construction approach might filter out.
Yeah.
Have you seen that happening?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So, the nature of modular means that you need to have a factory or some type of, some version of a factory established to create it. So it's a high bar for companies starting out. So what we've seen is companies that were doing some type of modular switch to more long-term housing and affordable housing and long-lasting structures from, say, school portables, right? Those are some of the early entrants. We're also seeing folks that are using technologies that are really common in terms of custom milling, and they're scaling them up for more mass timber applications. So those pieces are happening. There is a huge part of the government focusing on a rapid delivery program for affordable housing, and that's provided a real boost to some of those existing companies in the market. Government stimulus in terms of funding projects that have a rapid delivery timeline is definitely a factor in the successes we're seeing of modular taking off.
And just to give a sense of, what's the population of Hamilton roughly?
Oh yeah, mid 500s. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So we're a mid-sized city. We're actually, we're one of these historic cities where a lot of the fabric of the city is still intact. We're not a suburban community, although we have suburbs and plenty of farmland. Most of the city is actually farmland in the way the city's shaped, but it's like a full intact mid-sized city. Mid-sized city. It's a wonderful community, and it's amazing to see so many high quality buildings going up in the city.
And just reverting to the question of prefabrication, but this time with retrofits, is that something that you're agency is exploring in any way?
Yeah, a little bit in a sense. With our Ken Silva project, we explored options for cladding and looking at European examples. There were off-the-shelf products that could be used in that region. Here in Canada, we didn't have as many. So we essentially, when we retrofitted this 117-story building, we had to essentially create a system to clad. So we've done it from scratch. Actually, there's another housing provider in Ottawa that's set up a little factory themselves and prototyped doing the same type of thing, but for townhouses. So you are seeing folks dip their toes into it, but it would be great to see established modular or other types of manufacturers coming in with fully modular products to clad buildings. That there's definitely a gap in the market.
Are you liaising with other agencies across Canada? You mentioned Ottawa.
Yeah.
How are you guys influencing each other in terms of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly, we're a collaborative sector. We're all in the same situation, and we're not competing with each other necessarily, not directly in any way. So there's a tremendous amount of collaboration and excitement too around building sustainably. So there's working groups all over the place for us to collaborate on, and many of the larger providers certainly work hand in hand with each other to try and figure out procurement, contracts, building design. Like, we talk through all of these issues, and everyone has their own strengths that they're coming from in their communities, their own experiences. So it is very helpful to work together, and it's accelerating our progress as a sector.
In an earlier talk today, there was talk about the total cost of building ownership, looking at that when considering the cost of retrofit measures versus just the payback time.
Yeah.
Is that factor that you're working with?
Yeah.
Your agency?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we commissioned a study that helped guide our board in determining some key design decisions for our buildings. It was everything from garbage chutes to balconies to high performance, and certainly when we're designing out our buildings, high performance, but everything on the table, we're looking for ways that really are mindful of the long-term impacts. I mean, one example is just on the balconies. I know it's a controversial position to maybe look at removing balconies, but from a landlord, building owner, the cost of repairing and renewing those down the road is tremendous. It's like underground parking, not quite as bad, but these are items that need a lot of repair and maintenance for them to work well. And if there's ways to not include them, we have to look at them. So we're certainly mindful of the total cost of ownership, not just only with energy, but that's a big piece, but looking at all building systems.
Well, it's been really great to talk with you. I really appreciate you taking the time.